What's up, guys? In this episode of the TMF Talkshow, I sit down with Seth Jared Hymes, the creator of indemandcareer.com, the fastest way to start a digital marketing career. Seth's program is actually the program that I first took when I started my digital marketing career, and a lot of you have asked me about this program, so I thought I would sit down with the creator himself and ask him all the questions that you would like to know. In this episode, we talk about digital marketing as a career, universities, online programs, and personal finance, and a lot more. So make sure you watch till the end if you want to know everything there is to know about digital marketing and remote jobs. I had a great time filming this episode, so I hope you enjoy it too. Before we get into it, I want to take a few seconds to thank today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform where you can learn new skills like graphic design, web development, freelancing, and entrepreneurship. It's great for anyone who wants to expand their knowledge or gain valuable skills that they can use in their personal or professional life. And it's suitable for both beginners and seasoned professionals. Skillshare classes include a combination of video lessons and hands-on projects that can help you get the experience you need. You can take them whenever you like and learn new skills without getting distracted by ads, and you can focus on learning on your own schedule as most of their classes are under 60 minutes. I recently took a Skillshare class called YouTube Success by Marquez Brownlee, and my biggest takeaway from that class is to create videos that I personally would want to watch on YouTube. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Now let's get into the show. And we're live. Seth Hymes, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Hey, it's good to be here. My name is Seth Hymes. I run an online course called the Digital Marketing Career Blueprint. And basically for the last 5 years, I've helped thousands of people start careers in the field of digital marketing with no previous experience or education. And I'm still doing that today.
All right, cool. Yeah, so for some context, Seth's course was actually the first course that I took back in 2018, and it was on digital marketing. And I would say that course has set me up so much, and I still use what I learned today. So thank you for the course, Seth. It was amazing. All right.
It's my pleasure, man. It's great to meet you.
And yeah, so why digital marketing, and how did you get started into it? I know you went to film school and you were in the film industry for a bit, but I won't spoil anything. I'll just let you take us through that journey.
Yeah, so I went to film school a long time ago, but it was a real waste of my time. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know, I'm very critical of higher education and college. I came out of college very overly educated with no practical skills, no idea how to make money, how to support myself. I spent like 10 years doing random production work, waiting tables, delivering pizzas, working in offices, you know. I knew I had more to offer. I knew I had some intelligence and creativity, but I had no idea how to do anything. And that really sucked. And I know a lot of people I run into, a lot of my students are in that same situation. You know, school didn't teach me anything of value, really, except basically how to read and write, which, you know, I learned when I was like, you know, 6 or 7 years old. So, no, in 2010 or so is when I discovered digital marketing. A friend of mine took me to a seminar, and I didn't know what it was, but the guy was talking about building websites and funnels and, like, you know, selling your stuff online. And this was still pretty early, 2010. And I was like, whoa, you can use the internet for something other than watching stupid dog videos. Like, that's awesome. So I got the hunger that you've got, and I like to say is when people learn about digital marketing, if they're going to end up in this field, you just become obsessed with it. It becomes so interesting. I learned everything I could about building websites, paid advertising, SEO, affiliate marketing, email marketing. I just was like a sponge, and I was trying to make money with my own website, my own courses, my own blogs for about 1.5 years. And I didn't make much money. Like most people, I struggled. I learned a lot, but I didn't have much to show for it. And then one day I was working this terrible telemarketing job because I needed to pay the rent. And I saw a job posting for it said account technician. And I'd never heard of this. And it said, well, what do you need to know about it? And it was all the stuff I'd learned. As you know, I'd run Google ads. I'd done SEO. I built websites. I knew about email marketing. I knew all these things. And I revamped my resume to kind of reflect what I'd done. I didn't know what I was doing. And to my shock, they emailed me back within like an hour, very quickly. That company, they wanted to meet me, and basically I interviewed with them, and I wasn't able to talk about any real job experience. I had no experience, but I just told them about my knowledge and my passion, and they hired me. This was 2011. And that changed my whole life. Like, I mean, the first job wasn't a lot of money. I was getting paid like $16, $17 an hour, but they handed me $100,000 worth of ad spend to manage every month. And that was so valuable because that was the experience that I then used to leverage myself into higher and higher paying jobs. And within 3 years, I got a 6-figure job working in-house at a private company. And, you know, my life has never been the same. I've never struggled with money or had that problem because this skill set is just so in demand. And then, long story short, in 2016, I started my course where I taught other people basically to do just what I had done. And it took off, and I've helped thousands of people at this point.
Cool, man. Yeah, $100,000 in ad spend on your first job. That's a lot.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking. I mean, but like this is what happens. A lot of my students still happen. This is crazy. 10 years since I got that first job, and the industry still doesn't have enough skilled workers. They still aren't teaching this in colleges. And even if they do have a digital marketing course, it's outdated. It's being taught by old tenured professors. They don't know the actual skills you need. So what happened in my first job was the VP of the company sat right next to me. And he basically trained me on how to manage these accounts. And he was very calming presence. I was very stressed, of course, like most people are, but he helped me be very calm and very, you know, very objective. And that's what happens with a lot of my students. No matter what kind of ad spend they get handed in the beginning, sometimes it's $1,000 a month, sometimes it's $20,000 a month. They usually have a lot of support. They don't need to have come in with having already managed this much ad spend. Because these companies are willing to train. They can't find people that even know what digital advertising is. So yeah, it was a little bit of a learning curve, but I mean, it was like, I mean, I would have paid them for that experience. It would have been like an internship, you know, or you'd pay a school tuition to get that kind of experience. And now my students are getting jobs like this. They're actually getting paid to learn and build their experience. So it's great.
Yeah, I was going to say that in one of our videos, I think we were talking, I was talking about what kind of jobs should you accept, right? Especially if you're new to a specific industry. And even if your pay is not the best, the fact that, especially in digital marketing, where you get to spend that amount of money, like real money, like $100,000 in that spend, that's so much, that's such valuable training and such valuable experience that is very hard to come by if you don't, let's say if you were to start your own digital marketing freelance agency, it's very hard to come by. But with an agency or with a job, it's just like that, and it's so valuable.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, like, when I stumbled upon digital marketing, it was kind of the first online course that I stumbled upon, right? I kind of knew that you can kind of make money online, but I thought it was very rare. It was very foreign at the time. And it just so happens that digital marketing was the first thing I stumbled across. So I wanted to ask you, like, why digital marketing instead of other remote capable careers, like, let's say, programming, or let's say video design or designing or 3D modeling, since a lot of these careers are now jumping on this remote capable bandwagon?
Well, I mean, digital marketing, in my opinion, is still the most, in my experience, still the most in-demand skill set across the board, across the planet. And the pandemic has accelerated that. So what's happened is basically in the last 20 years, advertising has completely changed. You know, go back 20 years, like when I was in college, you know, we had billboards, TV, radio, and we had the yellow pages. I don't even know if you guys know what that is, but like in America, the yellow pages was like once a year, this huge book that was this thick would be delivered with all the local business advertisements. And that's how people advertise. Imagine you can't update your listing for a year. It's set in a printed book. That was local advertising, or you'd pay a lot of money to get on the TV. Mm-hmm. There was no internet. And in 20 years, the internet's changed everything. But the the educational system, everything is behind. So all these jobs got created. And, you know, when I started teaching the course back, you know, in 2016, or when you took in 2018, and LinkedIn and the US is where I primarily my students are based, but I have people all over the world. But let's say globally, or in the US, I should say, there were maybe 30,000 jobs a day on LinkedIn in 2016, and that went up to like 40,000. Before the pandemic, it was at like 50 to 60,000 a day. During the pandemic, it went down to 25,000 a day. Now it's at 90,000 a day. And that's just in the US. Before that, that was global. It would be like there's 100,000 digital marketing jobs globally. Now it's just in the US, and globally it's like 200,000 or more. So we're, in comparison to these other fields, the demand is much higher in my experience. Also, the reason I picked it, or I stumbled into this field, but it just was a perfect fit because it didn't require too much technical expertise. That was the real thing. I was always interested in computer programming. I actually did computer programming a long time ago in Pascal and BASIC, like that's how old I am. And I thought it was cool, but I didn't have the analytical focus for that. And even now coding, I think it's really great if you can learn it, but I don't think it's for everybody. If you're a person who majored in English, or you have like creative, aspects to your personality, and you're not like built like an engineer, coding is very intimidating. Digital marketing is what I like to call a very balanced left-right brain field, because there is the left brain aspect. You do have to analyze data. There's a lot of technical analysis with SEO. If you're going to look at a website to see, what's optimized, what isn't. You're looking at data with PPC to seeing what ads are performing, what aren't. But it's not just analysis. Some people love that. They become analytics people. But there's a creative aspect. You have to write the ad copy. You have to get psychological. You have to think of, how do I communicate with other human beings? So it's balanced, and it's accessible. So someone like me, who was a film major and has an interest in movies and writing and travel, can get into digital marketing. Whereas I think some of these other fields, and again, I recommend, get into programming, coding, UX design, if you're built for that. But I just think digital marketing is more accessible. That's another reason.
Yeah, I completely agree. For me, I really like digital marketing because it's so broad that it can be used in any of these fields. So for example, like programming, like right now I've been learning like some programming languages myself, just so I can customize my landing pages even more and take it to the next level, right? For example, video editing. I've learned video editing recently because I started this YouTube channel. And so all these skills can be encompassed into that digital marketing umbrella, right? If you're really analytical, like you said, you can go under analytics. If you're really on the creative type, you can go towards like ad creation, creative copy and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why I really like digital marketing as well, because it's just so broad and it's become the new like ultimate generalist skill, compare it to like sales in the past, or like communication, where everybody has to know some form of it and at least be have some level of awareness about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many options within the field. Like, like I said, like I teach primarily PPC, paid search, and SEO, but a lot of my students have gotten analytics jobs, which I didn't even realize how in demand that skill set was. And they just focus on analyzing customer data. Other people become copywriters. They really like writing, and they really like, persuading people with words. Other people get into web design. There's so many paths you can take once you have the basic skill sets. And it is very exciting. And yeah, video editing, funny, when I was growing up, before I was doing deck to deck editing before nonlinear, I had that skill set, and it was so funny. It just wasn't in demand. You couldn't get a digital video editing job. Now, video editing is a really good skill set. I think it is still a little more competitive because a lot of people have that skill, but you go on Fiverr, Upwork, companies need editors. So that's another good skill set to have. And as you said, you can use it on your own videos too. Now you don't have to pay an editor. You can edit your own videos.
Yeah, definitely. So you were talking about like personalities and how like if you're not so analytical, maybe you don't want to go into programming. So my next question was, you've seen a lot of students come and go in your program. Like what type of people usually find digital marketing the most fulfilling and make a long-term career out of it?
That's a great question, man. I couldn't like put together a profile for you, but I know that there's certain qualities people have. First of all, I've had people from all different backgrounds. I just interviewed someone yesterday, Xavier. I mean, he dropped out of college and he was working as a car washer, and I have people who worked. I had an auto mechanic. I had somebody working, retail. I had people working as a landscaper. I had people working in so many different backgrounds. You wouldn't be able to like pick this person out. Maybe it's, he's working at the car wash. He's going to be a great digital marketer. But it's more, I guess the qualities are like, I mean, they're very driven and very curious. They want a certain amount of control over their careers. And there's something about digital marketing resonates with all these people. I'm thinking like what made me a really good digital marketer was like, there was something very appealing to me about the problem solving aspects of digital marketing, the creative and the analytical parts of it. And I think what also resonates with people is there's a level of freedom in that you can really determine how much you get what you put in, right? So like when you have that kind of control over your own path, it's really empowering, and it attracts a person who's like very self-motivated and wants to excel, I've found. And like I said, the people who've done really well are usually very positive people, and they do have, would say they are pretty balanced between left and right brain. Because I know just the personalities of my students, like they get super into the analysis and they're super nerds, but they're pretty balanced. They're not like when you meet an engineer, like if you have a friend that's an engineer or like somebody who's really analytical and they kind of have that super brainy vibe, which I'm down with, but you wouldn't know they're digital marketers. You know how you can tell somebody's a lawyer or something sometimes, but, oh, they must be a lawyer or they must be an engineer. You wouldn't be able to guess that somebody's a digital marketer, other than the fact they seem to be pretty happy with their job.
Yeah. For me, I think that freedom, the desire to have that freedom, time freedom, location freedom was the primary drive that brought me into digital marketing. But the thing that got me to stick with it, or I think the thing that contributed to my success, is like how curious I am, and how curious I am to learn new things, and also how I'm able to solve problems like what you said. So in my first job, even though everything you taught, my first job was basically heavily on Google Ads, and a lot of things that you taught were applicable to the job, but there were some things that, of course, in certain contexts that I didn't know, and I literally just Googled most of the things. And I think you mentioned this in your course as well, that you can find most of the answers in Google if you know what you're looking for or how to look for things on Google. So I think that was one of the things that I thought that, hey, this is actually, it can be challenging, but there are answers if I go out and look for them.
Yeah. I honestly don't know how to explain it. It's like so different from school or other jobs where you feel very limited. Like this is your job to look at, I worked in accounts receivable at one point, and it was like, take the invoice, look it up on the computer, check this box, write this check. It was like so robotic. But with digital marketing, when I had my first in-house job, I remember they gave me like full freedom to like, hey, what do you think we should do with this ad budget? Let's try some new stuff. And then I'm like out there researching, like you said, like, I'm like, oh, I don't know that much about this particular remarketing tool. I better research. I'm going to talk to some colleagues. Hey, if you guys use this, and I think when you're learning, I think about humans, like learning and problem solving is very fulfilling and very enlivening. So I think that's a good point you touched on. And you're always going to be learning. And my whole point with my course is to get you the language. Like I'm teaching you the alphabet. I'm teaching you the foundation from which you can then grow and continue to learn.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So we were talking a bit about like college and stuff like that. So just to give a bit of context, I took a law degree when I was in university, and it's a bit different than in America. I know in America law is like a postgraduate thing, but over here in Malaysia, it's an undergraduate course, and you go through 3 years and then you go to your 4th year if you want to go to the bar and practice. So before I took the course, I actually I did well in a particular subject, and as a reward, the law school gave me an internship which I didn't have to apply for. They just gave it to me for 3 months. And after 3 weeks in the internship, office job, 9 to 5, I thought that this is not for me. This is definitely not for me. So after 3 weeks, I quit, and I realized that I confirmed something that I knew from when I was very young, which was that I didn't want to work in an office, right? So I just wanted to ask you, like, what your opinion on college is. Like, I know recently you wrote a book called "Skip College for Success," and when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's very, very bold statement. So I just wanted to know a bit more about your opinion on college.
Okay, well, obviously I'm from the West, and my opinion for Westerners, pretty much, is that college is a complete waste of time and money, a painful waste of time and money for most people, other than the people that are going to become doctors, engineers, or get any other job that requires accreditation and licensure. Whereas college is part of that process. And even in those cases, I've heard people talk about how law in the United States is overly complicated. It used to be apprenticeships. But in general, most people are wasting their time in college, is my strong opinion. In fact, what you described about Malaysia's law school actually makes more sense to do it undergrad, because in America, it's absurd. Someone will spend 4 years wasting thousands of dollars studying history or English or women's studies or philosophy before law school. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you just spent 12 years in primary school, primary and secondary and high school, learning a lot of other irrelevant stuff, then 4 more years. And then you got to spend 3 more years, and it's very inefficient. And at this point, it's become a real liability for people in the West, young people. The amount of debt they're being asked to take on I don't know what it's like in Malaysia, but in the US, the kids are graduating with imagine $50 to $70 or more $1,000 in US dollars in debt when you're 22. Can you imagine? Like, especially, it's unbelievable. And the parents are pressuring the kids into doing this based on their unexamined beliefs from the past. So when they grew up, college was super cheap, and it really did make a difference. But my thing is, and again, I don't know what the culture's like in different countries. I've had students in France or in Malaysia or Thailand or Vietnam, or I know in some of these countries it might be a little more traditional with the degrees. But in this field, digital marketing, when you're freelancing for companies, the degree is irrelevant. No one will ask about your degree. Job postings might say degree required, but that is just this unconscious habit. So many of my students, as you see me interview them, they dropped out of college or they skipped college, and they're doing great. I think college, as an educator myself, I think it's an abomination. I think it is terrible, because I remember college, and it's such the worst way to teach people, cramming irrelevant information into people's heads. The textbooks are bloated. The way that the knowledge is, I remember the textbooks in college, and the academic writing is what they call it, is the most stupid way to communicate. The sentences are, 4 pages long. They're using big words that just to sound impressive. And when you come out of this environment of academia into the real world, you have to unlearn all this bullshit. And what's so funny to me is, even in the US, like, I had this student who was telling me how one of my students, a lot of the parents hold them hostage. They basically say, hey, we've been supporting you for 18 years through this nonsense called high school. So now you're either going to go to college and we'll pay, or we're going to kick you out of the house, and you have to figure out all this other stuff on your own. You've never been taught how to work, how to make money, how to pay rent, how to take care of yourself as an adult. So a lot of them stay, because they don't know how to take care of themselves, they'll go to college. So one student of mine, he took my course. He's in college. He's already got a job while he's in college, but he can't go full time because he has to do these BS courses. He went to his job fair at the school, and he was just laughing at me about these jobs. They're ridiculous. They're these entry-level assistant jobs that have nothing to do with anybody's major. And he learned skills, and he got a better job while he was studying nonsense in school because he had the skills. So my short version of it is, skip college, get marketable skills. Sorry, I could go on about this for like 4 hours, but I don't want to,
Yeah, you have a whole book
bore
on
your
it,
audience.
so we
I wrote a book.
yeah,
Yeah.
we put that in the description. So yeah, I think in my opinion, if you have to go to college or if you want to go to college or university, pick a course that is difficult to learn outside of college or university. So for example, like perhaps engineering or medicine. And in my scenario, it was law, right? You can learn law outside of uni, but it would be very difficult or demotivating to learn it by yourself. So and in my time in uni, I agree about the like the academic writing, and it's actually a particular big issue in law where the judges nowadays have to tell these lawyers like stop inflating all these words and just tell me what you need to tell me instead of making all these big words. So it's a particular thing in law. But I think some of my experiences in law school were useful in that we had like mock trials called moots. So we learned how to speak and present our case and stuff like that. And we also had like legal aid where we help people in need, give them legal advice and stuff like that. So I think there are some practical experiences and good experiences that I have. And what I wanted to give you a bit of context about college or university in Malaysia. So I kind of agree that it's a big time waster, but let's say the money waster was mitigated. So I know that in the US, the student loans can be quite extravagant and the interest rates are about 3, 4, 5%, right? But in Malaysia, I think it's a very special case in Malaysia where your student loans are only 1%. And you can only take, I think, up to 30,000 Malaysian ringgit. And the student loans are 1%. And if you don't pay, the government it's a government loan. So it's not by a commercial bank, it's by the government itself. And if you don't pay, which a lot of people don't pay, the government is quite lenient on you, which of course I do not support. Like it's not sustainable in any way. But what are your thoughts if the money aspect was removed or mitigated? Because also in Malaysia, there's a lot of scholarships going on, whether it be local scholarships to go to local universities. Like for myself, I didn't pay a single cent in tuition fees. I just paid like cost of living and stuff like that. But there are also lots of scholarships, Malaysians and Singaporeans in particular, where they're high achievers and they get full scholarships to go overseas to study, and everything is paid for. Tuition fees, cost of living, everything is paid for. And some of them even get an allowance where they have more money to spend on things they would like. What would you think about that?
Well, we're talking about a few different things. We have to discriminate. We have to discern and take it one by one. So I'm like, somebody's going to pay you to go overseas and have a travel experience and study and give you an allowance. I mean, I wouldn't say no to that if you actually want to do that. Now, people in the US are talking about free college, which isn't free, by the way. I'd be paying for it with my tax dollars, which I don't want to do. I still think, so here's the thing. I'm an educator. I love teaching people. And you've seen people raving about my course, right? Mm-hmm. I've never seen anybody raving about college. Like, oh my God, it's so amazing. It changed my life. I learned so much. It is part of an indoctrination of this is part of your life path. Grow up, go to college, get married, have kids, have a family, all this other stuff. It's very unconscious. And it's also, for whatever reason, in the collective way of thinking, it has a monopoly on the idea of education. So if you really want, this is the thing about being an adult that's so great. You get to choose what you want to learn. You know, when you're in college, you're still like kind of a kid, right? And there's still people are forcing you and telling, oh, you need to do this. So the real question is, first of all, do you need to do it? Do you need to do it to get a job? Because I think people should be able to take care of themselves financially. That should be the first most important thing. A lot of people in my country are so stupid because they grew up in the 60s, like my parents, or the 70s, and they have these ideals about education. And they're like, you can't put a price tag on education. I'm like, yeah, well, what's tuition? Why is a 20-year-old paying $70,000 a year to go to NYU? So I'm like, this is really stupid, and you're destroying people's finances. So people should be able to take care of themselves, right? That's number one priority. Now, once you can take care of yourself financially and you want to learn about history or literature or psychology, absolutely, you should learn. I love learning, but it's usually in the US, it's at the expense of people's like livelihood. Now, if you're in Malaysia and it's more affordable, I still think, I mean, I would be less vehement about it, like negatively, but I still think it can be a real waste of time if you're going to come out of there and still not know how to pay your rent. It's like, and then there's the life experience. Like, yeah, I don't know what it's like in Malaysia. People go to college to get away from their parents and party and have sex. Like, that is what people do. I know Malaysia is a more conservative Muslim country. I don't know what people are doing on campus, but in the US, that's it. That's the experience. Like, you get a little bit of taste. It's like, it's training wheels, where it's like summer camp, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that aspect of it too. I don't think it's worth going in debt $100,000 for the rest of your life to, to date and drink. But I love adult education, which is where you get to choose what you want to learn. You get to take seminars, you get to take courses. And I think it's much more fulfilling than going into these, like, you couldn't pay me to go to a college course personally. Like, literally, if you said, Seth, we're going to give you $500,000 to go to college for 4 years, I wouldn't take it. I mean, if you paid me like 50 million, I might consider it, but like, I wouldn't want to subject my brain to this type of teaching. Mm-hmm. It's so, as you said, it's so inflated the way they teach. It's just unpleasant. Mm-hmm. So but you really have to get specific, what you said about what you're majoring in. Like, what are you studying? Yeah. I don't think it makes any sense after all this time in high school to study the liberal arts as a 20-something. I think it's that once you can pay your rent, study the liberal arts. But if you can't pay your rent, it's insane to like read more Shakespeare or read more about like world history. Because then you become one of these overly educated, idealistic morons who can't buy your own lunch, which is what you have in the States. You have these kids that come out of college with all this information and they're living with their parents. And they're sleeping on, in their childhood bedroom. That happened to me. I did that for a few years. And nobody like took me aside and said, hey, here's some skills.
Right. Yeah.
And to answer your question, I tend to rant about these things.
No, I think in some circumstances, even though the money is not a factor, it could still be a time waster. And in some scenarios where, let's say, you're just taking let's say, a very under-demanded course, then perhaps you should look somewhere else instead of college. Right?
What I'll say is this. I'm just sorry just to go on to this. I look at the curriculums, at least in the US. I don't know what it's like in Malaysia, but I look at the classes, even for like business. And the classes are, first of all, you have to understand, these colleges don't update their curriculums very often. That's one thing you have to really take into consideration. You don't know, this is the weirdest thing. Like, if you go to a movie or you are going to buy a car, that company, right? Like, if you're going to buy a car, you're going to buy a Toyota because it's a good company. You're not just going to say, okay, I'll just take whatever car you're going to give me. If you go to a movie, you're like, hey, I like this filmmaker or I like this actor. But in college, it's so just like, you don't know who came up with the curriculum. You don't know who put together the course. You don't even know who's going to teach it until you pay them the tuition. That's crazy. So I actually took the time to look into some of these curriculums and say, dude, some of these curriculums haven't been updated. You don't know if the guy who put it together is dead because it was put together 20 years ago. And there's no quality control. That's really the biggest thing. Like, people just give a pass to college. Like, you don't know anything about the quality of what you're learning in this class. So I would say, do that research and like ask the professors, ask the college. Like, no one on a college tour asked this shit. Like, hey, in this course called Introduction to English Literature, like, when was this curriculum written? Oh, and at NYU, that's what I know because of my college, which was supposed to be a good college, is not. My film curriculum hasn't been updated since the 60s. Okay, that's 60 years.
And film, so, that's a long time.
It's crazy. I wrote a book about this too before called Film Fooled. But even in your colleges in Malaysia, you say, who put together the curriculum? Who wrote it? What are their credentials? Were they working in this field? Were they, maybe they were a scholar? And that's what you get a lot in academia. I saw this dude in marketing. I remember he's kind of famous professor at NYU talking about digital marketing, talking complete nonsense about how there's no jobs in digital marketing. This is a professor at NYU. Some kid paid $70,000 to listen to this guy, give him wrong information. And then one of my other students was at a college in Seattle, and he was at a frat party talking with this girl who's a marketing major. And he's talking about how he has Facebook ad clients and how he's making money and he's learning about, paid media. And the girl said, I swear to God, she said, well, my professor says that Facebook ads are a fad.
Yeah.
It's just a temporary thing. It's not real.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
dude, somebody paid this professor to give them bad information. So again, that's in marketing, that's in business. Now, if it comes to like English, I don't know. I mean, some of these books you're reading have been around 200 years. Maybe you won't get bad information, but it's just amazing to me. Like people will do all their research on buying a car or a washing machine or something, but they won't research the college.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm really opinionated about this.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. So I think to give people a bit of context, digital marketing, what sold me to go on your course is that during the free program, you said that go and look it up yourself, right? Go on LinkedIn, go on Indeed, and look at all the jobs of digital marketing that are available in your area. And that's what I did. And I encourage anyone who's listening in and watching this video who is remotely interested in digital marketing to go on LinkedIn or go on Indeed or any job board and look at digital marketing jobs nearby. And I can almost guarantee you that there are so many that there's an undersupply and an over demand for digital marketing people. So that's how I was really hooked into it, and I actually got my first job through Indeed, which I did not know about until I took your course. So that's a good one, and I really enjoyed your course because not only did I learn about the digital marketing, but also how to get a job, basically, which was the most important part.
Right, and they didn't teach you that in college, did they?
No.
They didn't teach you how to do a resume, how to talk to a hiring manager.
No,
right?
Not at all. Yeah, and yeah, so I really believe in the education should be very personal, right? Instead of being like, this is the curriculum that everyone should learn through junior school, middle school, high school, and then university. So, and I believe that right now, especially since last year, when campuses are closed, college or university has been second guessed more, right? And because you remove that factor of being able to hang out with people your age and party and whatnot, and it's all just online now. So people are second guessing. And so I guess the next question is, when people are second guessing college and they're looking at online courses, right? When you started your online course in 2016, and even when I took it in 2018, the whole online course industry wasn't as, let's say, extravagant as it is right now. So if someone was looking to enroll in an online course right now, what would they have to look out for so that they can at least make sure that they're not getting into something that they are wasting their money on? Because there are a lot of online courses out there right now that are overpromising and giving unrealistic expectations, and people are getting burned. Yeah.
I think that's a great question, man. And I'm very aware of this because I'm really proud of the fact that my course has been around for 5 years and is still growing. Like I didn't even think it would last this long, but it's had I had such an authentic impact on people, and I actually deliver. And I've realized like that is not that common. There are a lot of bullshitters out there. Sorry, can I swear on this?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. There's a lot of BS. And so first thing to realize is that I would examine, like, first of all, don't ever buy anything on an impulse. And one of my competitors, who's actually a former student of mine, he ripped off my program, and then he uses a lot of these marketing techniques. So I'll just make you aware of some of these right now because it's very common. So false scarcity. If you're ever pressured to buy something, like you have to buy within the next day or you lose out on this big discount, never do that. You should take your time to research, even if you're going to take weeks or months. I've had a lot of students who find me and then months later they come back. I'm not going to try to like pressure you into buying. And then people mess with the prices too. Udemy does this, actually. I cannot stand this. Udemy has some good prices, but every week they're like, this course is really $300, but if you act now in the next 5 minutes,
that's crazy.
$10. And it works though. It's psychologically, it's really powerful, but don't be pressured in terms of being rushed into something. The other thing is you should check refund policies and understand that as a consumer, if you use the credit card, you do have the right to dispute any charge. I actually, the guy I was talking about, he actually has people sign a contract where they waive their right to do this. And I would say, don't do that. And also I would say, if you do not enroll in a college or university course, because you're not going to get a refund. That's like, I mean, college, their business model is not built that way. Like, I actually don't know what it would be like to do an online course with a college. But as far as the quality goes, I was like, you just got to research what the people are saying and make sure it's a realistic expectation, and see if you can actually get in touch with people. That's what I'm really proud of with my course is And I don't mean to sound like a salesperson here, but one thing I learned, I didn't even realize this, that I've had so many students like you that people see the interviews, they see the testimonials, and they'll reach out to you or my other students and ask questions like, is this legit? And they tell them. Other courses I've seen, especially the ones by the guru type, the real high level people, is like, you can't reach anybody. Either you can't reach anybody to get specific answers, or they have VAs answering the questions. Now, I answer all the questions that come to me through my email personally. But at some point, you know, I'm going to obviously say nice things about my course. You can find other people to give testimonials about it. But you really do need to do a bit of research on any online topic. Like, for instance, if you're gonna do a course on trading, I know it's not even my field, but I've researched this and I know that niche. You got to be really careful, right? Because trading stocks is the riskiest thing you can do. And I mean, you teach it, and I'm sure you give people this disclaimer, is that you have to have your mindset right. You have to have realistic expectations. You have to have discipline. But if somebody's like telling you, hey, you're going to make 10 grand in the next month, you got to really, analyze that. And you have to take responsibility. And I'm telling you, there's no such thing as easy money. That's why in all my interviews and all my students, you'll see it says like from 0 to 60K, from unemployed to 4K. And I show people successes, but they tell the real story, which is I started out with nothing. I worked my butt off for 3 months, 6 months. I went to job interview after job interview. They hustle, they work hard, and over time, they get results. And the guy I was speaking to about before, he has these ads saying you're going to make 10K in 1 month or something like that. And the problem with that kind of thing is it does work. Like, it sounds too good to be true, but people will still buy because if you're a good marketer, you can really persuade people. But I'm just saying that's not how it works in digital marketing. You're not going to make 10K in your first month. You're not going to make 5K in your first month. The realistic time frame for success in digital marketing is working for free, or hustling, learning in the beginning, and then getting an entry-level job. At least in the US, it's about 30 to 45K entry level. You can leverage that to 60K in a year. But it's a progression. It's faster than any other field I know of, but it's not overnight. So that I would say you have to look out for people making unrealistic promises and do your research.
Right.
Yep. Was that helpful?
Yeah, that was really helpful. Just to recap, don't get pressured into buying fake scarcity. Like, if they say that today's deal only, then don't believe them. Do your research. Make sure you can contact the people that are actually running the course. I thought that was very important, because all these big gurus, let's say, you can't really contact them, and there's no personal connection. And I think that's very important. And that's what I really felt in your program as well. So if someone has been learning digital marketing and they're ready to take the big step of finding a job, what do you recommend they do? Should they go freelancing? Should they go in-house? Should they get a job at an agency, or should they go freelance? Should they go on Fiverr, Upwork? So many options now. Or should they start their own, let's say, digital marketing related business like e-commerce, affiliate marketing?
That all depends on your preference. I mean, you're going to know what you want to do. Some people know they want to freelance. A lot of people want to freelance, but they don't have the confidence. So then I say, get a job, build your confidence, and then you want to freelance.
Yeah.
Some people just want a job, so get a job. And if you want to do e-commerce or run your own online business, then do that. I mean, you have all these options, but I don't think there's a one, like you said, it's personal. Every student I have has a different desire, but I have noticed the trend, which is, I think most people want freedom. Mm-hmm. So even my students who get agency jobs, most of them, by the time they're 2 or 3 years in, are like, okay, I'm ready to do my own freelance business or my own agency.
What do you think has been the one thing that has contributed to the growth in income you've had over the years?
Mindset training.
Okay, cool.
Here's the irony. So when I was younger and I was broke, I was so fixated on like, how do I make money? How do I make money? My mindset was terrible. I wasn't consistent with things. I was arrogant, and I wasn't listening to the people who were giving me the advice. And I kept hearing, you have to work on your mindset. And I didn't ever listen to them. And I found that's the irony, is that the people who need to work on their mindset usually don't do it.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing. Once I started to take it very seriously, like my mindset, and I got into things about manifestation and things like that, my life completely changed. Actually, it was 2013. Well, 2010, I mean, once I got these skills, things were much, much better. But I still, in my first agency, I didn't realize I was being underpaid. And then it was like I was working part-time. I was working on my own business. I was still kind of struggling. And then in 2013 is when I like really took mindset seriously and got really focused. And then within the next 6 months is when I got my first six-figure job, which was like so much more than I'd ever made before. I was getting bonuses. I was getting promotions. I loved the job. And it all, I believe, I'm really a big believer in synchronicity and things opening up when your mind is ready. And it all happened from that, for sure, the mindset stuff.
Yeah. So going from, let's say, not like earning very little money in the past, and then earning six figures, and then having your own successful online course, but at the same time, not wanting to take it too extreme and not focusing just on the money. Like now, now you don't live in America anymore. You live in Thailand. You don't like make your course super extravagant to squeeze out all the money. So how has your view or perception on money changed from earlier and up till now? Like how you were brought up, and how has that view changed to where you are now?
That's a pretty deep question, man. But a good one. No, grew up in a household. I mean, I was very focused on money from a young age. There's a lot of pressure on security in my family. I was the oddball. I went to college, but I majored in film, and I was always like, I didn't have a job. I was working odd jobs. I always felt like a failure. But I was always obsessed. I wanted to make money. It was a big focal point of my life and a point of stress. And then since I started becoming more comfortable, I actually got to have the experience of going the other direction, which is where I had enough money, where I didn't have to worry as much. But then I became fixated on it in the other way, which is, I started to identify with it. So this is a process that a lot of people go through. I mean, we could do a whole other video on this where I've seen if you don't have money, you're in a particular kind of suffering. This is like Buddhist stuff because you have like survival level thoughts. You're just focused on making enough money to deal with your basic needs. And it's a particular experience. Then once those needs are met, this is why you see these movie stars and rich people who aren't happy. Like it seems unfathomable that you'd have millions of dollars, and I'm not there, but I mean, I have comfort and I'm still unhappy. Like it didn't solve the deeper problems of satisfaction in life. And so I realized this is actually really interesting what happened. And I haven't talked about this too much, but like in March of last year, basically I had a loss in the stock market. It wasn't huge, but I like my mindset, like the panic, everything. I got really triggered and I lost some money during that time. Not thankfully. I knew other people at other times who lost like everything. No, I just had like one of those like situations. And I got really turned off to the stock market. But what it did is it shocked me awake because I was like, I had become so fixated on money. And I had such a depression almost from this experience that it really woke me up so I could be able to distance myself from money as my source of happiness or worth or anything like that. And I think that is where you have to go once you reach a level of comfort. I got involved with stock trading for a little while, and I think it's great for some people, but I didn't want to be, it's like without actually making millions of dollars, I got clear that if you reach a certain point of success, like you're going to be insatiable in terms of like, well, okay, I made 10 million, but that's not enough. Now I need 20 million. Now I need 50 million. And there's a spiritual and internal satisfaction that will never be just money's just not what it is. It's not its function. Mm-hmm. It's a great tool. I'm grateful for it. But now it's pushed me back into more of a spiritual mindset, which is great because I'm not like, I know a lot of people who resist money, or they say it's evil, and those people are usually broke. So they go to this other extreme, and I'm like, no, this is great. I have a good business, I'm helping people, and I have a good perspective. And every once in a while, that greed bug hits me where I'm like, shit, I missed out on this trade, or I missed out on this opportunity, or, oh, this guy's making more money than I am. That's what happened to me when, I guess I wasn't gonna really talk about this too much, but like when I see other people who are making more money than me in entrepreneurship, yeah, it triggers sometimes it triggers some jealousy, or I'm like, oh, they're making money. But then you're in a really bad place. I've really focused on appreciation. Mm-hmm. So much appreciation, so much gratitude. And I realized when I was younger, when I was broke, if I had focused on these things back then, anytime I had good things come to me, it was because I had focused on being grateful. When I had a really good mindset, things would just like come to me, So yeah, we could do a whole other talk about money, but that's a little taste of how I look at it now. When you're sitting, that was the big thing about lockdown. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, you still can't go out, right? Or you still can't enjoy certain things, or that helps give a perspective. One thing that Osho says, I like the guy who's crazy, but I like what he said. He said, like, so yeah, you either have to deal with like struggles of the stomach, which is what most people are dealing with, just like getting fed, dealing with rent, and that's a certain level. But once that's taken care of, there's a different level of like struggle. Mm-hmm. And this is the existential struggle, the mental, the emotional, like all the satisfaction, like, just being happy with yourself.
Yeah.
Most people are just on a hamster wheel, just moving all the time. They can't sit still. And they're avoiding these, dealing with these things. That's a funny thing about money too, is like either people keep chasing it. I actually knew a guy who was about my age, who had more money than I've ever met. He had $50-60 million. He had sold a company when he was young. $50 million in the bank. Can you imagine? And he had no peace. Hmm. He was starting a new company. He was not, he was just driven, and I knew that he wasn't a happy individual. Like he was very stressed. And, but I think the good thing, this is one of the things that S.N. Gonke says, who did the Vipassana meditation. You know Vipassana meditation?
No.
I was going to do a video on that. It's this free meditation centers all over the world. And he says, in this very funny way he talks, but he basically says he was born into a wealthy family. He worked in like diamonds or something before he became spiritual. He said this big gift, because if you don't make some money, you don't have to become rich, but let's say you have to reach that goal of, I got 50,000 euros. If you don't reach that goal, it becomes a fantasy. You live inside this weird fantasy as a person without money, that the money will solve everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have to get the money or some of it to break that illusion and go through that heartache of like, shit. Cause I actually was in that for a couple of years, and I realized like in 2019, I come back from Asia. I was living by myself in California. And I was like, fuck, man, I got this business, and it's working great, and I feel unfulfilled. So, I think there's a lot more to the conversation for sure.
Yeah. Just to wrap things up, what's the best purchase you've made under $100 recently?
Thai lessons,
like speaking Thai language lessons.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's true. I bought a bunch of other things for under $100. I buy things on Lazada all the time, but I found this website called italki, which is where you can hire a tutor to basically give you personal one-on-one lessons in whatever language you want to learn. And I found this great tutor teaching me Thai, and it's the first I've tried learning Thai 3 times. It's not easy for English speakers, and this time it's great. She's a great teacher. It's much easier for me to memorize. I can understand and speak even just a little bit. And it's very fulfilling. Like, I feel really excited about learning a language, which is another level of enjoyment that I haven't had before. So I think it was definitely less than $100 for the first 2 lessons. So I think that was a great purchase.
All right, cool, man. Time flies, man, when we're talking. Thanks for coming on. And where can our audience find you online?
I think you're gonna have some links below. I'll let them click on the links below the video. They can check out the course, the free webinar that I give more insight into this field and how you can get into it. And then you should probably have links to my YouTube and my Instagram as well.
Yeah, for sure. Seth's course, there is a fee to it, but there's a free program that you can go through. Check it out. If you like it, go for it. If you don't like it, it's really helpful as well if you want to dip your toes into digital marketing. But yeah, that's it, guys. Seth Hymes, everybody. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So that's it for today's episode on the TMF Talk Show. I hope you learned a lot. Let me know down in the comments what was your biggest takeaway, and you can find the links down in the description below to find Seth online. See you guys in the next one.